I've been stationed at Outpost 47 Gamma for 12 cycles now. It's a backwater port on the edge of the neutral zone, where the seedier elements of 7 species come to trade things that wouldn't pass inspection in more regulated sectors. I've seen it all, or so I thought. My species, the Struff, have superior olfactory senses, which is why we're often assigned to customs duty. Smuggled biomatter, contraband pharmaceuticals, even the sweat of a nervous trafficker. We can detect it all. After 12 cycles, I could practically identify species, cargo, and level of illegality with a single inhale. Then came the human. Humans aren't uncommon at 47 Gamma. They're relative newcomers to the galactic community, only achieving FTL travel 3 centuries ago, but they've spread like a particularly ambitious fungus. They have this adaptability that makes other species nervous. Where Struff took millennia to modify our environment to suit our needs, humans simply modify themselves. Too cold, they add layers. Too hot, they create cooling systems. Toxic atmosphere, they design breathing apparatus. It's unsettling. This human, though, this one was different. He smelled wrong. Not the usual human smell of sweat, synthetic fabrics, and those peculiar food substances they enjoy. No, this human had an acrid, smoky smell I'd never encountered before, like sulfur and ozone and something ancient. Customs inspection, I announced, approaching his docking bay. Manifest and cargo verification required before port entry. The human smiled. They do that a lot, showing teeth in a way that would be a threat display in most species but is somehow meant to be friendly in theirs. This smile, however, didn't reach his eyes. "Of course, officer, everything's in order." He handed me a data pad with his manifest. Just bringing in some exotic pets for private collectors, all properly sedated and contained. I scrolled through the manifest. Terran reptiles mainly, small ones called geckos and bearded dragons. The humans have an odd fondness for naming non-threatening creatures after mythological threats. "I'll need to inspect the cargo," I said. His heart rate increased. I could smell the change in his body chemistry. "They're in stasis. Opening the containers might disturb them. Nevertheless," he hesitated, then nodded, leading me to the cargo hold. Standard shipping containers lined the walls, each bearing environmental controls and biohazard symbols, all normal for exotic animal transport. Then I noticed the container at the back, larger than the others, heavily reinforced, and hot. I could feel the heat radiating from it from across the room. "What's in that one?" I asked, moving toward it. The human stepped in front of me. "Just a larger specimen, same family as the others." "Open it." "Officer, I really don't recommend." "Open it or I call security." Something changed in his posture then. Humans are predictable in their unpredictability, and I've learned to recognize when they switch from compliance to calculation. He was weighing options, measuring risks. Finally he sighed. "Your call. Don't say I didn't warn you." He entered a complex sequence on the container's panel. The security measures were far beyond standard for animal transport. Quantum locks, thermal barriers, even psionic dampeners. Who put psionic dampeners on a reptile container? The front panel slid aside and heat blasted out like a furnace breach. Inside was darkness, and then movement. I've seen images of ancient Earth reptiles, their dinosaurs and Komodo dragons. This was similar but wrong, too perfect, too deliberate in design. 4 limbs plus wings folded against its back. Scales that shimmered with an iridescence that suggested metallurgy rather than biology. A long serpentine neck ending in a wedge-shaped head. It opened one eye, golden, slitted, and unmistakably intelligent. "Impossible," I whispered. "Dragons are mythological creatures." The human laughed softly. "That's what we thought too until we found Fireweed 4. The creature's eye focused on me, and I felt something brush against my mind. a curious, ancient presence that felt like it was sifting through my thoughts as easily as I might sort through cargo manifests. "It's sentient," I managed to say. "Oh, more than that," the human replied, reaching into the container to stroke the creature's neck with a familiarity that suggested they'd done this many times. The dragon made a rumbling sound that vibrated the deck plates. "They're telepathic, pyrokinetic, and possibly the most intelligent species we've ever encountered. This little one is just a hatchling, barely 50 years old." "Little one?" The creature was easily the size of a Jovian mountain cat. "You should see the adults." The human grinned, and this time it was predatory. "They're magnificent. Some have wingspans wider than this ship." This is illegal," I stammered. "Sentient trafficking is a Galactic Council violation." "Only if the species is registered," the human interrupted. "And to register a species, you'd have to admit it exists. We're still debating that part." "We? Humanity?" He shrugged. "Half our governments want to announce Fireweed 4 to the galaxy and establish diplomatic relations. The other half," he gestured to the dragon, "well, let's just say there's a very lucrative market for creatures straight out of our oldest myths." The dragon snorted, a small jet of flame briefly illuminating the container's interior. I caught glimpses of inscriptions on the walls. Containment runes, the human called them later, designed by the dragons themselves to hide their psychic presence. "You can't contain this creature," I said, "and you can't sell it." "Already have a buyer," the human replied. "Velnith billionaire, wants it for his private menagerie." I reached for my communicator, but before I could activate it, the dragon's eye narrowed. The communicator grew hot in my hand, then melted into slag. "He means well," a voice said in my mind, ancient and amused, "for a human, but he is misguided." "Did you just—" I looked at the dragon in shock. "Yes, and no, I am not his captive. I am his teacher." The human smile had changed, become sheepish. "They're not exactly what we expected when we found them," he admitted. "We thought we'd discovered animals from our legends. Turns out, they're the source of our legends. They've been visiting Earth for millennia." "We seeded many worlds," the dragon's voice explained in my mind. "Yours included. We watch, we wait, we evaluate. This is a cultural exchange program," the human said. "Unofficial, obviously. Draconos wants to learn about the galaxy before making formal contact. I provide transport, they provide education." I looked between them, finally understanding. "You're not the smuggler," I said to the human. "You're the smuggled," he laughed. "Perspective is everything, isn't it? Now, are you going to report us? Because Kirix here can probably melt your entire communication system before your backup arrives." The dragon, Kirix, made that rumbling sound again, which I now realized was laughter. I considered my options. Reporting them would mean paperwork, investigations, and likely my reassignment for allowing a non-registered sentient species through my check. Not reporting them would be dereliction of duty. But mostly I was curious. "What are they evaluating us for?" I asked. The human and dragon exchanged a glance. "Worthiness," came the reply, not from the dragon this time, but from somewhere much deeper in the ship. The human smiled apologetically. "I should probably mention that Kirix isn't the only dragon on board." That's when I noticed the ship itself was warming up, the metal walls taking on a faint, scale-like iridescence under the lights. Humans didn't just find dragons, they'd partnered with them, and together they were evaluating the rest of us. May the void help us all. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave it a like and to subscribe if you'd like to see more. Feel free to comment and share it as well. With all that said, go on and check out the video in the top left. I think you might like it.